welcome to my video. Today we are making beef steaks and mashed potatoes, or some people call them smothered beef steaks and mashed potatoes. Now this is actually something I just recently learned how to make, and my whole family absolutely loves it, including myself. So of course I want to show you guys how to make it because it's super simple and absolutely delicious and also very affordable. Which I don't know about you guys, but for me, I am on a tight budget with this economy and prices of everything, so finding an affordable, delicious meal is definitely the best. But anyways, before I get started with telling you step by step, I hope you're having a great day, and if you're not having a great day, hopefully it gets better. So as you've been watching, first step is peeling and getting your mashed potatoes done. And of course, I'm making homemade mashed potatoes. It's the best way to go, but if you want to use the pre-made mashed potatoes or like packet mashed potatoes, that kind of thing, you can. Totally up to you. And you're gonna want to peel 7 large potatoes. I did peel 8, but 2 of them were small, so they kind of equal the size of one larger potato like shown here. And if anyone's wondering where I picked up these potatoes from, I picked up that big bag that you see in the video from Aldi for only $3.40. Highly recommend picking up potatoes at Aldi. You can always get that big bag for, it's usually always priced under $4, which is super nice because you get a lot of potatoes and can make a lot of dishes with them. Like for example, I made a whole dish of mashed potatoes in this video and it hardly dented that bag of potatoes, so super nice. But anyways, I would like to note I did not wash these potatoes right away. I just peeled them all and then I washed them after I have all my potatoes peeled. So I'll just bring my bowl over to the sink, rinse them off real good, and then end up cutting them. And by the way, these potatoes will be baked at 400 degrees, so you can start your oven if you want to, or you can wait until the potatoes are done and start them then. Now, you do not have to bake your mashed potatoes if you don't want to. This is just how I always make my mashed potatoes. I think it makes them taste 1,000 times better than just eating them right after you get everything mixed together and mashed. But like I said, it's totally a preference, but in this video I am baking my mashed potatoes because like I said, it's just what I do every single time I make mashed potatoes. I think it's the best way to go. Here are all the peeled potatoes. I'm gonna go rinse them real quick off camera, and now that they have been rinsed off, I'm just slicing them all up and putting it in the pot to be boiled on the stove. Boiled in some water on the stove. And another thing to add, it does not matter how you cut up your potatoes. I'm just cutting them this way, but if you want to do little squares, cubes, I mean, you can cut them however you want. I just do it this way because it's simple, easy, and fast. And then once you have your potatoes all cut up, you'll just fill your pot all the way up. You want the potatoes completely covered in water before you put it on the stove. And how long potatoes take to boil really varies. So I always recommend fork checking it. And what I mean by fork checking is you just want to stick your fork into the potato, and if it falls apart right away or breaks right through easy, that means your potatoes are completely done and they're ready to be mashed. So I always check them that way. I never go by a specific time because sometimes it can vary. All depends on like the size of your potatoes, like the size of what you're slicing them, if that makes sense. Like the bigger chunk potato you have, the longer it will take. That's why I'm doing it pretty thinly sliced and keeping everything the same. That way they're all cooking evenly as possible. But you do not have to be perfect at all. You just have to make them as closely as possible to being similar to each other. And I just wanted to take a quick second to mention, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. And if you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see me make, whether that's baking or it's cooking, please leave a comment below. I'm always open to suggestions and hearing what you guys want to see. And as my followers already know, but if you're new here, I am expecting a baby this winter. So I'm hoping to get my channel up to 1,000 subscribers before baby number 2 is here. I'm hoping I can hit that goal. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that would help me out a lot. And thank you so much. So here's what the potatoes look like when they're in the water, getting ready to be boiled. And I just kind of skipped through. But now my potatoes are completely done, so you're going to throw in a full stick of butter and then pour in the potatoes right on top of that stick of butter because the heat will melt the butter down. And then while that is melting, we're going to add in our garlic. I only added in garlic and pink Himalayan salt. Those are the 2 seasonings I'm using. And then after I have that all done, I am going to add in sour cream. I add in roughly a half a cup of sour cream. This I just eyeballed, but add at least a half a cup of sour cream. Sour cream adds in so much flavor to your mashed potatoes. I highly recommend not leaving that out. Same with the garlic. I would add a little bit more garlic on here, but I was running low, so that's kind of all I had. And if you want to know the measurements for garlic, it was roughly 3 tablespoons of garlic. Alright, now we're just going to mash everything together and then put it in our pan to be baked in the oven. Like I said, we will be baking this at 400 degrees for roughly 15 to 20 minutes, just until the top gets golden brown. And then one other thing we are doing before we put it in the oven, getting a little ahead of myself, is we will put a little bit more butter on top, and I'll show you here in a second what I mean by that. Alright, now that we have the mashed potatoes in the pan, I'm going to try my best to evenly flatten it out and smooth it out before we add in a little bit of butter on top. We're only going to do 5 tablespoons. So you're going to do 1 tablespoon in each corner and then put 1 in the middle, because something my grandma always told me is you can never have enough butter when it comes to mashed potatoes. So adding that little extra butter on top adds a good amount of flavor and is absolutely delicious. But like I'll always say, this is totally up to you. If you don't want to add more butter, you do not have to, but I would highly recommend it. Alright, now we are finally working on our burgers, or what they call in this recipe a beef steak. So what I'm adding on here is some garlic and onion powder. And then this is what it looks like when I flip them over after I had them cooking for a little bit. And I do also add pink Himalayan salt, but sometimes it's a little hard to see the salt when I add it on there. But that's what I'm sprinkling on right now, is some pink Himalayan salt. And then here's a quick video what the potatoes look like when they are completely done. And when those are done, they just sit in the oven while you finish up the rest of this meal, which entails making the gravy, which is brown gravy. Now, if you want to know specifically where I picked up this packet, I did pick it up from Aldi, and you will need 2 cups of water because we will be using 2 packets. It's a cup of water per packet, and we will be pulling off the beef steaks while we make the gravy. You do leave all the seasonings in the pan. You don't clean the pan. You're just putting the gravy mixture into that pan and letting it cook with all the seasonings that are already on the pan, if that makes sense. But obviously I'll show you here in a second. First, we're going to make sure that we have the gravy mixture mixed well with the water. As you see, I'm using a whisk here. It's the best way to go. And you just whisk it around for about roughly a minute or 2. Alright, and when that's done, like I said, we will be pouring it right back into the pan. You don't need to clean the pan because you want to keep all that flavor in the pan while the gravy is cooking and thickening up. And then one thing we also add to this brown gravy mixture is a can of cream and mushroom soup. Now this I'm mixing lightly with a fork. Obviously it takes a little bit to mix out evenly. That is just because right now everything is cold, so obviously the warmer it gets, the smoother everything mixes together, if that makes sense. But this is what it looks like when everything is mixed together. Now you're just gonna lightly stir it like I am showing you right here until it is at the thickness you prefer. And how I tell, or how I like it done, is when I pull it down like I am right here and it slowly comes together. That's telling me it is pretty thick. So that's what I look for to be, kind of the sign that my gravy is done. And then once it is done to your liking, we will be putting the hamburger patties back into this gravy and then smothering them with the gravy. And just letting it sit and soak for about a minute before you just serve it on a plate and it's all ready to eat. And if you're someone who's already made this recipe or made a recipe similar to this and added in something a little bit different, do leave a comment below. I always like to see what people do a little bit differently because I always think it's interesting how everyone does something a little bit different. Like I have seen some people add in onions to this. I don't have anything against onions, I just didn't because it seemed a lot more common people making it this way than adding any onions. But anywho, a little off topic. As you see here, I am smothering them, like I said, with the gravy, and then I just let it sit for a minute with the stove off. I do turn the stove off because my gravy is completely thickened. You don't want to leave it on because otherwise the gravy might burn, but this is what it looks like once you have it on a plate ready to go. A scoop of your mashed potatoes you made with a patty on top with that gravy, which in other words, worded beefsteak and mashed potatoes. A delicious dinner meal that can be served with some green beans.